Hey gang, welcome back. I wanted to do a quick video about something that we talk about a lot in our practices. We end up seeing a lot of patients for metabolic disorders, for weight loss, that's the presentation very often, but all kinds of body composition issues and things like that. And I kind of want to go over something that I think is really important that often is missed in a standard medical setting, something that I think our standard medical setting gets wrong, and something I'd like to shift from an education standpoint. So when we talk about things like body composition, so often we're talking about building muscle mass or adipose tissue or fat. You know, there has to be an appropriate balance, right? Your body composition will change if you grow muscle or add muscle or make your muscles bigger. Also, it will change if you lose fat or add fat. And most people want to lose fat. There's some that want to do the opposite, but ultimately, most of us are looking to be lean, have as much muscle mass, lean body mass as possible, and to reduce our fat mass. So, in an effort to do that, we have to talk about signaling mechanisms. So I hope you can bear with me for a second because I want to go through something that is a little bit biochemical, some molecular signaling pathways, but I'll need them to illustrate the point. So when you think about adipose tissue, let's just talk about that very specifically. So adipose tissue or adipose cells, adipocytes, are cells that are alive. They are alive as much as any other cell in the body. They have functions, they use energy, they have bioenergetics, they receive signals, and they also send signals, which can cause problems and also be a good thing. Those cells, in response to thinking about gaining fat, you know, we think of them as these little storage cells, and they are, but also they are there to burn fat and to create signals for other cells throughout the body. That cell signal that happens to cause them to take in fat and to keep it in storage versus burn it has a lot to do with a very primary hormone that most of us are aware of, which is insulin. Insulin is such a major player in our metabolism. It sets the tone for our body and for our metabolism in a good or a bad way. This is the part that standard medicine messes up a lot, is that we have this idea that glucose management and metabolic health is based off of a glucose-centric model, meaning when we go get lab studies or we're looking at things, we evaluate the body based off of what is your glucose level. The problem is that is the last piece that happens. One of the first pieces that happens is insulin levels rise. And if insulin levels rise, particularly over a chronic state, you can become insulin resistant. Long-term issues related to insulin resistance develop into things like diabetes or, at a minimum, metabolic syndrome. And I will tell you that metabolic syndrome is rampant. It goes way underdiagnosed because we have this glucose-centric model. We're waiting for the glucose levels to skyrocket. The simple answer would be, and the thing that I tell patients all the time is, you don't just wake up diabetic. These things have been happening for years and years, often 15, even 20 years. There are so many associated conditions like PCOS and other issues that come along with insulin resistance, besides even just diabetes. So it is very pervasive, but it is under talked about. It's under recognized because our testing does a very poor job of trying to assess this problem, and as a result our treatments fail to try to address this problem as well. So in our practice, we focus on looking at insulin levels very early on, assessing them for everybody, including our, if we've got a physique athlete, bodybuilder, an athlete, otherwise professional sports athlete, it doesn't matter. We need to know what their insulin levels are because that tells us about the state of their cells, about the state of their signaling, their endocrine system, and their hormones otherwise. This is a simple example that, I heard about this. I was listening to a researcher who's an adipose cell specialist. They have done these studies, and it drives home the point very simply about how important insulin is. So if you take adipocytes, if you take those adipose cells and you put them in a petri dish, they can exist. They are alive. You can bathe those adipocytes in glucose, so in the sugar that everybody talks about, that normally gets produced into fat or can become storage of fat once it's processed. But what will happen to those adipocytes, if there's no other agents in there, they can be floating in a bath of glucose. They will not change in size. They will not hypertrophy. There will be no hyperplasia. They will not change at all. However, if you add even the slightest amount of insulin, all of a sudden they uptake that glucose that gets converted into storage. Insulin is a storage molecule. That's its signal. It does numerous other things, but from the simplistic perspective, it is a storage molecule and it is a storage signal. Now, what do you think is going to happen if a storage signal is present in your body regularly throughout the day, every day, for years? You are going to store and store and store. This, to take it to a different example, is why when you're trying to talk about a body composition change or a weight loss change, the idea of calories in, calories out is far too reductive. It does not work. It fails at multiple levels for multiple people because they have other metabolic conditions going on. For those that are insulin sensitive, that don't have metabolic disruption, that might work. And it might work for a period of time, and it might work in your younger years, but it fails to work as we get older, as our signaling changes, as our lean muscle mass relative to our body composition tends to change as it does with aging. So, drive home point is this: we have to assess insulin. That has to be something that is focused upon in our evaluations, and it has to start early. We have to do it with our adolescents. We have to do it with our 20-something-year-olds, because just because they're young doesn't mean they don't have those things going on, and you can catch something very early. If you have anybody in your life who has PCOS, you know that those symptoms present early on. They happen in adolescence, and it can wreck that young woman's life, because they are not getting diagnosed early enough. They are having catastrophic metabolic issues that are happening. They struggle with menstruation. They struggle with mood, energy, body composition, all of the other things that the rest of us struggle with, but they do it much, much earlier than other individuals. And that is a insulin resistance paradigm that needs to be noticed, and it needs to be treated appropriately. We'll go in a separate video about how to think about things like insulin resistance and body composition change and how to affect insulin signaling and all of those things. But I wanted to give that idea of where our focus should be clinically to make the biggest impact for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Because it doesn't matter if you're, like I said, a physique athlete, or you're a mother of 3 and you want to feel better in your own body. You want to just feel better. You want your energy to be better. You're concerned about brain fog. You're concerned about your family history. These things have to be assessed. They need to be assessed early and often, and we have to know what to do with the information to make the biggest impact. So I appreciate your time. I hope this video was helpful. I'm excited to make a lot more of them. And I'm excited to get this education out, because I think it's going to help the population, particularly ours, but even otherwise people who can't come see us in person or via telehealth. I want to be able to big impact and to have us be able to spread our message to everybody. So I hope you have a great day. Take care and see you soon.